Blog Talk Radio.
Today is Wednesday, October 25th, 2017, and this is Foxology. I am Silver Ray Fox, your host. Happy Wednesday to you, or whatever day it may be that you have decided to tune in to hear this particular podcast. Wherever you are, whatever day it is, I thank you, and I want you to know you are so welcome here always. You know, I'm always having something interesting going on here, at least I think so. I feel that in some way or another it's going to bring some insight, some light or enlightenment to my listeners. And, you know, it helps us all to be informed and educated, to gain a nugget here and there that helps us to know a little something about a lot of things. That's what I do. I know every show isn't for everybody, but this I do know, every show is for somebody, and that's why I keep doing it the way I do. I grow, you grow, and we all know a little more than we did when we first tuned in. How about that? Yeah, that's how it works over here. Well, the other day I took a slight dare to talk politics, and, well, no, I didn't. I listened, and my guest today, who was the guest the other day, talked politics. That's how it really went. Well, anyway, it was both interesting and rewarding, and I dared to ask the question, can we turn down the heat? It has just been something, hasn't it? Our political climate is really something right now, and every day it seems to be something that's continuing to turn the temperature up to unbearable. So I feel my question is very valid. Prominent businessman, political scientist, and CEO of the Center for Economic Policy Development joins me once again to continue the discussion we began last Saturday. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you for having me back.
Well, I am glad to have you back. I thought that we had a really good conversation today, the other day, that offered the opportunity for people to really get some additional insight into some of the things that are going on. I don't know that, you know, it's possible to answer all of the questions that are swirling around in the heads of so many people here in our nation and around the world, but I feel that one of my goals was to at least unveil some of the things that are happening that are causing such obvious unrest in our hearts and in our souls. And I think you really provided some information for us, at least to help us get our bearings in that regard. So I thank you for that, and I thank you for being willing to come back to talk about this some more. We were talking toward the end of the show, and you were explaining, I had asked the question actually at the end of the show, but we'll get that. But prior to that, you were explaining how you feel change can occur. And so I'd like for us to reflect back on that a little bit and see if you can provide for us some big picture solutions. I have a big picture solution, but I don't know that it's right for me to say on the air what I think that would be. But I would like for you to tell us some of the things that you think would be some good political solutions, some good solutions, grassroots. What can we do right now to help ourselves get to a better place? One of the last things you were mentioning was to tone down the rhetoric.
Well, I'll tell you, it's a situation in this country where, you know, because of the political climate, everybody is tuned in. And I think that's a good thing because it sets a really good foundation for people to be able to engage in the political, not only the political discussion, but the political action. And I think we can definitely make a difference and bring about some positive change by getting involved throughout the entire political landscape. Voting is something that, probably over 70% of the population is not engaged in. And I think we need to start voting. I think that if we want to be able to make the differences in this society, we have to start voting. That's number one. And not only that, I think that we need to start running for offices, because you can't expect people that don't understand where you come from to be in an office and represent your interests, because if they don't know where you come from, they're not going to understand how to properly represent your interests. So the best thing you can do is, if you yourself, if you know anybody that has that potential, that has that capacity, I say push them to get into a race, a mayor race, a county commissioner race, a state representative race, even a United States congressional race. But it starts with people taking their frustrations, taking their thoughts about what's going on and putting it into action. And in doing so, we're going to get some positive change. But as far as the negative climate that's going on in this country, we need to let's take a step back and look at how we view one another. I think politics has a way of dividing people, and because what it does is it pits people up against each other based on their differences. And if we really want to move forward in this society, and we want to move forward the right way, we need to find those common threads that bind us together. And I talk about this all of the time. Those common threads like love and unity and peace and respect, and really viewing one another as brothers and sisters, as opposed to, us versus them, black versus white, the have versus the have-not. Those types of things are not really good for society, because it doesn't take us anywhere good. Even with the entire, debate on police brutality on African American males, I've taken a look at how police are trained in this country. I take a look at the terminology that's used. Anytime you start to see a person in an aspect of being a subject or a perpetrator or a perp, or any one of these terms that brings their humanity down to subhuman, then you're more out to do something to that person, as opposed to seeing that person as a brother or sister or a member of the community. Your approach will be a lot different. And so it's that way in law enforcement, it's that way in almost every aspect of our society. Everywhere in the world, there's a mechanism that people use to separate themselves. But I think we have to find those mechanisms to be able to bring us back together. And then that way we can move forward and make, some magic happen, I think.
Let me ask you something about the divisiveness that's occurring. I wonder what your thoughts are when you look at that. You were mentioning that, too, as we were winding down some of the white supremacy protesting or whatever it was that was going on the other day. I am wondering, are we looking at a small part of our population that's similar to the theory that the squeaky wheel gets the oil? Are we looking at a small part of our population that is angered, frustrated, hating, looking for ways to vent it, that is being blown up in a way that it looks like they're talking about our entire country. Because what happened with this, what I can see, and I'm asking your perspective, it was like lighting a fuse and causing an explosion. And everywhere you look, the race card was being pulled. Not that that's not a reality, it is. And there were people coming out that a lot of us just didn't expect to hear stuff from, in the workplace, in churches, and various other places. So in some way, that was good for that revelation to come to people who needed to recognize how real it is. But I still ask myself, is it a portion of our population that is igniting this and making it really look like, through media and social media, that we are really that we really have a problem that is out of hand? And I ask this question, and I'm trying my best to ask it as intelligently as I can, because as African Americans, we are not afraid to fight. We have fought for everything. And we are in places that are incredible in life, in work, and in politics, in society, that will not be taken away from us. No way, no how. We're not going to backtrack. There is no such thing that's going to happen with us. We don't think like that, and that's not going to happen. And so I'm wanting to know your perspective on what I just asked about this whole thing. I think if it were to stop and somehow go away, we could just start, again, using our energies and our intellect, our savvy, our unapologetic ways of moving forward to keep growing and keep becoming. So I hope I had to say all of that so that you could reflect clearly on what my question is. Is this really the way it looks?
I would say that it's probably worse than what it looks. And the reason I say that is because...
Did you say it's worse than what it looks?
I think it's worse than what it looks, because there's various forms of racism. You have racism based on, institutions, racism based on systems, and you have racism based on ideology. And I think that, as I was saying earlier, in every country around the world, there is a mechanism that humans use to distinguish themselves from other humans. In Africa, there's tribalism. In Great Britain, there's classism. In India, you have caste. But in America, it's based on race. And the sad thing about it is, race is the one thing that you can't change. And so when you are of a certain race and you're at a disadvantage in this society, it's difficult. And on the flip side of that, you have people who don't understand just how difficult it is, and it's very easy for them to take on a mindset that if it's not happening to them personally, then there's a disconnect. So the reason I say that it's worse than what it looks like is because you have people, and I believe it's a very small demographic of people, who are overtly racist, like the alt-right group and the
Yes.
Nazis and groups like that. But then you have these groups who sit back and they're not really acting on their racism, but they don't do anything to help. And sometimes that can be worse, because when you're in situations where you're trying to make your plight known, and the people who can do something about it are turning their heads, and they're in positions of power, positions of influence, and they're turning their heads because they're not directly affected, then it adds more to the problem than it does to the solution. And so that's in my mind, that's what makes it worse. And so we have to be able to reach people who are of that mindset by getting them to see themselves in the situation. And I think that is a better way of trying to get them to say, you know what, I can understand that because, you know, I've been in situations where people have said certain things to me, and people who were not like me could not understand how that felt. But people who had daughters and sons who went on to marry people who looked like me, and they had grandchildren, they began to get a inkling of what that could be like for their offspring. And so it's about making it reflexive, making this conversation reflexive where people can feel it for where it really is, and then we can start to have the discussion on how do we change it. But it first takes someone to be able to be open-minded. We have to be able to listen. We have to be able to feel one another's pain and really just be of a mindset that, you know what, if this guy is hurting or if this young lady is hurting, then I want to know what that feels like so that I can do something about it. Because if I don't know what it feels like and it's out of sight, out of mind, then the chances of me trying to help is going to be very slim. So we have to find that human connection. And I believe that's what Dr. King did back in the 60s whenever he wrote the letter to the clergy. He basically said, you have your Christian brothers and sisters who are living in an airtight cage of poverty, that are being oppressed, beaten in these streets, and you sit back and you do nothing. But you're a Christian, and your Christian brothers and sisters are experiencing this. It was that appeal to their faith that brought them out to help. And that's what brought about the civil rights laws that, you know, that we have today. And so, you know, it's about finding those common threads. He used the faith to do it. You know, we have to be able to find, there's all types of threads. We can find all types of threads like love, unity, humanity, understanding, education. We just have to find those threads instead of always looking for the mechanisms that divide us. And I think under that, you know, we can tone down the rhetoric because people will start to listen, people will start to care, people will start to look for solutions, and then they can tune out the noise. In order to understand that something is bad, you have to first understand what's good, and vice versa. And so that's how I see it.
Well, let me interject this, because as I listened to you with that explanation, and you brought Dr. Martin Luther King, who was truly a movement, and what I hear, what came to me is that there's a great issue of just plain humanity in what you just described. And, of course, our leadership can flip the script on a lot of things. At least I'm believing that with the right people in place, just like you just described, that can happen. When you measure what you just said against the current political climate, how easy or hard do you think it's going to be? Because it just seemed to have, again, stirred up a whole lot of very overt actions in people that, you know, that I can't say truly surprising, but in a way it is. This wasn't happening, you know, quite as in the same way it is a year ago, 2 years ago. You know, it's opened up something that is really ugly, and it's impacting a lot of people. So how hard or easy? And I agree with, you know, getting new people to run and all of that. All of that can be and will be significant, important, valuable in the long run. But as we look at the current climate, are you saying that you think just turning down the rhetoric is the beginning, or what do you see? We have about I'm going to say this time flies, 5 or 7 minutes that you can give your thoughts on that, because I would like very much to hear what you can impart to us that may help.
I think that the rhetoric that's coming from the administration, I won't even say the administration, I'll say this. I think the rhetoric that's coming out of President Trump's Twitter page and some of the things that comes out of his mouth, I think it has done more to unveil the mask of racism in this country. I don't believe that he's creating more racism. I think that whatever racism was going on in this country, it was already there. But I think that it was masked, and he's pulling the veil off. He's emboldening people who harbor these types of ideologies to feel like they can just come out and do the things that they've been doing over the last couple of days in places like California and places like Gainesville, Florida. They feel empowered. They feel that because he's the leader of the free world and he sympathizes with some of the things that they do, they feel that they can do it. And so even with that going on, I still think that we as a country, we as a society, are moving into a better place. People say America's a melting pot. I say America's more like a salad bowl. We have so much diversity here, but it's slowly but surely becoming a melting pot. We're not there yet, but I think that we're getting there. And when we get to that point where we're all melting together, we're listening to the same music, we're wearing the same type of clothes, we're all interconnected through social media, we're communicating across borders, we're communicating across cultural barriers and things of that nature. We are gelling together as a country, and we're going to become more homogenous in our thinking. And that right there is what I believe is going to eradicate some of these racial tensions in this country. Because when we can understand that we are more alike than we are apart and more different, then we can get over any hurdle. And so it's only whenever we feel that we're so different that we can't move forward. We have more in common as humans than we give credit to. So,
well, I believe in everything that you're saying, and I agree totally with you. Mindsets are challenging to change. Often that happens with some very unusual occurrence, something that is often just shocking or worse. And, I think back to 9/11 and that impact that it had, and I'm sure it's lasted in the hearts and minds of many people all this time. But I listen and I think, okay, I wish that could happen in my lifetime, that I could see everybody loving each other and everybody getting along. Certainly we know ideally that is the best thing. And I believe that if people would see in the way that you have just explained how much we are alike, we could put our differences aside. But our mindsets, we're locked in mindsets. We're locked in a whole lot of things that prevent us from having the levels of engagement and trust and all the other things that it takes to embrace other human beings. So I hope and I pray that can happen. And I hope and pray it can happen sooner or later. And I hope it doesn't have to come with some strange happening, in the world, because those are the things that usually create the greatest shakeups. And like the hurricane and things that have happened of late that bring people together. I hope and pray it's not that. But if people couldn't intellectually move forward in the way you described, just decide that, I'm more like that person and I'm not. Let me see, let me count the ways. We could change the entire dynamic of it, and I totally agree with what you have just said. I wanted to ask you the last question before I let you go. There was that concert recently that President Obama, the Bushes, Carter, all were instrumental in making happen. I thought it was a very good thing to put out in the forefront, to see all of them combining interest in the betterment of helping our country and the people who are struggling right now with the aftermath of the hurricane. Would you say that was helpful? Do you think it sent a message? Do we need to see more of that, more of them, more people who step across their political party lines and make themselves more visible to help initiate the change that you just spoke of? And I may have to cut you off in about 2 minutes, so I know I asked a lot. I have some long questions.
It's okay. I do believe it helps, because what it shows is that, it's okay to put politics aside and do the humanitarian thing. That's what leadership should be doing. And not every issue is a partisan issue. There are a lot of issues out there that we on both sides of the equation can come together on. It doesn't have to always be about, well, I'm in this party, I'm in that party, and we can't interact. I thought it was a very good thing, and I do believe that we need to do more of that and set the example, not only for the Trump administration, but also for congressional members, because a lot of times our problems that we have in our everyday lives a lot of times stem out of the dysfunction that takes place in Congress. Everybody's trying to do the party thing. And, I always say that parties are man-made. There's pros and cons to every party, but it should always be about the people. And if politicians will start putting the people first, we will start to see positive change and more benefits going to the people. But, of recent months and over the years, you can kind of see why, people are really fed up. It's because these politicians get in there and it's all about themselves, and we just really need to vote for and elect people that are about serving the public as opposed to serving themselves. And so that's what I get out here and talk about on a daily basis, is knowing how to vote for the right candidate that's going to get in there and do what they've always been doing, which is helping build and re-engineer this society for the better.
Well, I sure appreciate your perspective, and I'm just going to give you fair warning, you're going to be my go-to guy for these conversations going forward. I do appreciate your heart for your work and people, and it's very impressive, and I appreciate it. And I think people like you that are really going to make the defining difference as we go forward. So thank you again for being my guest today. I do appreciate you, and I'll be reaching out to you again. I know I'm on board with some things that you're doing, and so I'll be talking to you sooner than later, sir. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
And I want to thank all of you again for tuning in. I hope that you are all the better for hearing it, and I hope that each one of us will take to heart that we can play a very big role in making a critical and positive difference going forth in society. Thank you so much. I look forward to talking to you again on Saturday. In the meantime, be good, Be blessed. Be awesome.